Your powers are weak, old man.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Did you tell Nathan to talk to Andrew about Vince?
I did. Nathan reached out about the block party and I needed help, so.
But we had a conversation.
I know, and I didn't involve you.
Yeah, but you still got my man to do you a favor.
And it all worked out, right?
That's not the point, Issa. You deliberately went behind my back. I mean, I was very clear about how I felt, but I guess what? That didn't mean anything to you?
Because, Molly, you were willing to let me fail? Over what? Some random rule you made up?
It wasn't random. I was setting boundaries.
Molly, you knew how much this event meant to me. You saw me at We Got Y'all, you saw me struggling, and you decided your new relationship was more important than doing me one little ass favor?
Nigga, you stay needing one little ass favor.
Why are you doing this at my event right now? Is it that serious?
Hey, you don't gotta do this, guys. We were just having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I was over there wobbling with your shady ass. Meanwhile, you stabbing me in the back?
Stabbing you in the back? Molly, this is OD. I don't have time for your drama. Okay? You keep starting shit. You keep making up problems. You keep focusing on shit that I need to fix when you need to fix your fucking self.
Bitch, do you hear yourself? Nobody has more drama than you, Issa. Okay? You need to figure out your shit and stop using people. You use Nathan, Andrew, me, who else?
Guys, let's not do this here.
See? You are so miserable. If things don't work out with Andrew, it's not gonna be because of me, girl.
Fuck you.
Fuck me, I've been stopped fucking with you.
I should have dropped your lying ass a long time ago. You still the same selfish bitch you always been.
Molly, get your finger out of my fucking
What you gonna do?
All right, here we go. This is my review of Insecure, Season 4, Episode 5. Call this one The Trouble with Molly. Now, the ongoing theme of this year's this season's theme is the rift between Issa and Molly. And I do believe this was Ram. Ram actually said, as people grow, sometimes they grow apart. And as Ram said on his video, Issa can no longer stay in her lane. And that is putting a stress on her and Molly's friendship. Molly has always been privy and accepting of Issa's kind of admiration. Molly's always the big sister, the one that takes care of things, the one that she looks to, almost like the big sister to Issa. She's the one that helps Issa clean up her mess. And that's the role that she's used to having. You know, I think a lot of times it makes Molly feel better that Issa's life is such a train wreck that in comparison to Issa's life, Molly's life is a success. Even though they banter back and forth and they try to keep each other honest. Like I said, at the end of the day, as I said on my last review, they are codependent. They're codependent on emotional pain. So even early on in this review, in this episode, I should say, when Molly was getting dressed with Andrew to go to the block party, she mentioned that Issa didn't show up for her, I think, a celebration, that she won a case or something like that, I do believe. And Issa didn't show up, and Molly was hurt because Issa wasn't there to support her. And Molly was deciding whether she should go or not. So even before Molly got there, she had an attitude. To keep up her appearances and keep her image up, she actually showed up even though she really didn't want to. So she was actually, pissed at Issa that Issa didn't follow through with the normal support that she has, even though she knows that there's a rift. And there's been a rift this whole season. So Molly does go, and she sees that Issa is actually doing her thing, and Issa's actually pulling things together. And Molly's kind of surprised. Even Andrew, who's in that line of work, says he's impressed at the setup that she has and the things that she's pulled together. And Issa is normally the screw up, is actually, doing her thing, and actually is impressing people with the booths, the setup, the guests that she has. Even Condola comes through and gives her props. Even though Condola has aided her putting things together and Condola has lately ghosted it, she's actually there to support her and tell her that she's actually proud of what she's done. So even though there's a rift between, you see that the thing is, that's the difference between Condola and, say, like Molly. Now there's a rift between Condola and Issa. Now even though Condola doesn't have the same history with Issa that Molly has, but you can see how Condola handles that rift, even though she's not a friend to Issa, not a friend like that to Issa. See how she handles it versus Molly. Now it takes Andrew to convince Molly that what she feels about Issa not supporting and not being there, like Issa's normally there. Issa's normally there for Molly at every phase, phone call, shows up at her functions, all kinds of stuff. And it's normally Molly that's the one that's busy. That Molly has work, Molly's work takes precedent. People have to get in line behind Molly because Molly's work comes first, right? And when the tables are turned and Issa's work takes precedent, and like Andrew told us, said, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to pull something like this together. And even though Molly's frowning, he says, remember when you didn't have time for me when you were on your case and our relationship took a back seat? Molly had to think about it. She had to actually consider that. She didn't like it, but she had to consider it. And there was one gesture that Molly did for Issa, which is caretaking. That Issa didn't have time to eat, and she brought Issa over a plate. And Issa was getting ready to eat it, and her assistant ran up to her and said she needed help. She was called to something else, and she didn't get a chance to actually bond with Molly and eat and share with her. And Molly is not used to that. Molly is actually used to Issa being in her place. And Molly's not used to being in the secondary role where her friend's work takes precedent over their friendship, which is something Cousin T-Taw says about the fact, female hierarchy. Issa is not in the place that she should be. Issa's out front, and Issa's the dominant character in this particular scenario. And Molly really doesn't know how to process that. And I think it takes time. I do think Molly will, and by the end of the season, will have adjusted. She will have adjusted and give Issa room to grow and actually accept Issa as an equal, because Issa's not an equal right now, not in Molly's eyes. Now, it started to be a little bit when they were actually playing the wobble and they were line dancing. And it was like old times where they were sharing and they were having fun. And everything was good until Andrew said that he hooked Issa up with a headliner. And the funny thing is that Molly is such a control freak, and Molly is such a 92 climber, and wants to be in such control of her position in her female hierarchy group, is that, with black women, sometimes they even think they control their men. And when Andrew told her that Nathan reached out to him to get help Issa with a headliner, and he just sent an email. He didn't do anything. He didn't make any special effort. He just emailed a client that he knew to come in and headline it, which actually turned out well for not only for Issa, but also his client. And it wasn't that it was such a big deal. The thing is that she saw it as a violation, that Issa expressly went against what she told her. In other words, she didn't obey her. And she really wanted to take it out on Andrew, but she couldn't. Because number one, she didn't tell Andrew anything of the sort. And number two, she can't tell Andrew what to do as far as helping somebody. And so Molly gets pissed, even though Andrew, expressly is confused and says it's not that big a deal. But Molly had to go confront Issa about telling her about how she was backstabbing her and she was a snake, and how Molly thought it was best to dress her down in public and during her event, which is the problem with a 92 climber. A 92 climber, I always say that everybody has a plan until they get hit. And in boxing, they said, if you get rocked and punched in the face, you reveal who you really are. And same thing with the 92 climber. Molly always says that she's a hood rat from Florence and Crenshaw. Now, just because she's going to school, she's become a lawyer, she's put on that 92 mask. As soon as she got punched in the face, something that she didn't like, she reverted back to being an 85. And what she did was hood rat behavior. Condola would have processed it. Condola would have called her the next day. Condola would have had a meeting with her the next day. Condola would have never done that in public. She would have never got into a finger-pointing argument in a crowd, especially during an event. If you notice, Condola has never said anything to Lawrence or said anything to Issa in a group. It's always been private. It's always been quiet. There was never been any hollering and screaming or yelling. Because she's a natural 92, they don't do that. Normally, they don't do that. But Molly's not a natural 92. She's an 85 or maybe even 87, but she's a climber. And when she gets upset, she reverts back. And that's exactly what she did. And even Issa, who's not really an 85, she's an 87, maybe who's naturally an 89, she said, Molly, why do we have to do this here? Are you really going to do this here at my event? But Molly felt disrespected in her hierarchy. And how do 85s especially, or 87s especially, handle disrespect in a hierarchy group? They get it addressed right then and there, and publicly, in not so nice words, and basically publicly dress down their underling. You violated my rules, you stabbed me in the back, and you pretended like you were my friend, even though it was no big deal. You just didn't do what I told you to do. And that's the trouble with Molly. So, this has fairly been a light event, but let's get to Issa. Now, Issa, this was a challenge. Like I said, this is the hero's journey. She got aid, and she gathered her forces. She started to pull things together, and this is a challenge. The headliner dropped out. All the people that aided her had basically ghosted or refused to help, and basically she was on her own. And she had to set up and she had to figure it out. She couldn't let it fail, because this is the moment of truth. And so she had to descend down into darkness, and she had to find herself. And even though Nathan threw her a lifeline by calling her up and actually helping her out by talking to Andrew, she finally marshaled herself, pulled it together, and actually did it. And she actually came out on the other side, even though at the very end, Molly showed up to actually kind of disrupt things. But at the end of the day, she pulled it off. And she got her kudos, even from her intern or her assistant. She said she was happy that she could be a part of it. And everybody else said they were happy they could be a part of it, because Nathan even came back and said, I remember in Coachella where this was just a dream, and you made it a reality. So even the confrontation where she actually stood up to Molly, where just the episode before where she backed down when Molly actually bullied her out of the parking spot and bullied her at Tiffany's. And Molly tried to bully her this time and dress her down. And she was expecting Issa to back down, and Issa didn't back down. Issa actually rose up and actually challenged her. Now, the humorous thing where is she reaching for a gun and people actually broke up and ran. Now, that was funny, and it kind of like broke the tension. But at the end of the day, she proved herself. She came out the other side. She actually proved to herself and to Molly that she's Molly's equal. So we're getting a different Issa just in one episode. This is the dark night of the soul. This is the test. This is the moment that tries people's souls. And she passed that test. So now it's the return, and to see what kind of Issa is going to be on the other side. Very interesting show in some respects, especially when you look at it from the human drama. There's a lot of funny little tidbits, here and there, but there's so many reviews of Insecure that do recaps. You can go to Ram and Miss Mocha did a good recap on some of the other tidbits. But like I said, for Insecure, I don't really do recaps. I do reviews, and I talk about the interpersonal and interpersonal dynamics of these characters and how that reflects in human life, but also in the Black community in our lives. Cousin Tita, give me a holler about Issa challenging Molly and standing up to her inside the hierarchy group. But with that, I'm gonna jump off of here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.